There's a couple places when I'm looking at a poem that I like to start with. I like to start at the title. I like to see what the first line's doing. I like to see what the last line's doing. I like to try to find where the turn is. I also like to see what's happening with the characters themselves because I think that can reveal a lot about what are the tensions inside of a poem. It's sometimes hidden because I think one of the things we see a lot with characters is we can lose track of them from a writer's perspective, but also a reader's perspective. Like sometimes you're writing a poem and you start off with a group of characters, but then by the end of the poem, there's only like one left. And it's like, well, where are these characters going? Why are they disappearing? How is that impacting the poem? Trying to understand those sorts of motivations, I think, can really lead to a deeper understanding of the relationship dynamics and also the tensions that come across in a piece. And so we're going to be doing that today with another poem, this one brought to us by Nona Rose, and we want to thank them. Uh, Pressing all kinds of buttons. My apologies, my soundboard is covered with stuff. So we're going to be diving into their poem, and we thank them so much for allowing us to look at it. Let's bring it up on screen. Make it a little bigger. Okay. This is Coffee at Sunrise. Coffee stains map the table. You've always been more into tea, but with me, sitting on the porch, you drink coffee as the sun rises, playing with a coil of wire between toes that barely see the inside of shoes, and occasionally plowed across the red dirt driveway to check the letterbox that is invariably empty, save the bills from the banks and telephone companies. But nothing so boring as water and electricity, as we source our own from a war in the arcane solar panels on the roof that the nice man from town installed when the government were offering a rebate, who also drank copious amounts of coffee at this very table after a day's work was done and dusted, and commented on how nice it would be living out amongst the stars to while away the hours, drinking from well worn mugs, and watch the sun descend beyond the horizon as we leave coffee stains on the table, mapping the course of our lives, one faded, not quite complete, circle at a time. Thanks again to No Rose for allowing us to dive in. So I mentioned that I'm curious about characters. Let's just begin tracking. Let's just kind of see who is appearing, when they're appearing. Do they stay with us? Do they change at all? Just give me a moment as I grab my marker. Okay. So, coffee stains, maps. I'm just going to like circle character words. You've. So we start off with a U, even before we get an I, right? You've always been more into tea. But with me, maybe we should do different colors actually, just to kind of keep track of things. Me, we can give a nice. Let's stick with purple. Let's just find the U's really quick. Let's try to keep this as simple as possible. There's a U here. Check layer box. Save nothing so boring as water. It's we. There's a we. Nice man when the government offering rebate. Straight tables dusted. A nice would be. Just sun as we leave. Map a course of our lives. One faded. Not okay. So those are the U's. Okay, let's track the me's. Me's and I's. But with me, you drink sunrises. Across ridge variably, but nothing so boring as water. There's a we. Any other me's or I's? Nothing. Okay. So we get one me. Then we morph into a we. Save the bills from banks. As we source. Installed. Oh, and there's an R. Yeah, my apologies if I'm missing things. I'm trying to be thorough. As we leave. Sorry for the lag spikes they occur. Okay, so I'm tracking we's. What other characters do we got? Well, we also have layer box. Nothing so boring as the nice man. Nice man is also the who, I think. And the nice man does that commenting, right? Okay. So I know those last ones don't directly have pronouns associated with the nice man, but these actions go back to the nice man. Okay. So some little things that I think are interesting already is how what are the responsibilities of each of these characters? What do we know about the you? The you is a T person. So the you is more into T. Okay. But this speaker has a pretty big impact on them, right? This speaker is so impactful or so influential for the you that they drink coffee. So I think that we can imply that to me, the speaker is a coffee person, the you is a tea person, but more importantly, we're starting to get an idea of just the relationship dynamics, right? So I think we can imagine it's the you and the me. I think we can imagine they're together and that the you is making a sacrifice. Maybe not like a large sacrifice, but a sacrifice. They're not doing their preference. But there's also the me is also very familiar. So there's I think there's a great sense of familiarity between them. You've always been more into this. Okay, and I think that this also reiterates also the what else can point to the comfort of the relationship? Well, the fact that just they've been together a long time. Like talking about the coffee stains mapping the table becoming this kind of metaphor or symbol of the relationship lasting for a long time, kind of marked up and things like that. I think comes through. What else do we know about the you? It's interesting. The speaker doesn't have much individual identity that comes through, but we'll get more into that in a moment. You drink coffee as sun rises. I imagine that the playing with a coil wire between toes is not describing the sun, but describing the you. I imagine. Let me know if you guys think that's a reach. Um, they play with a coil wire, so they kind of just like I don't know, like just kind of like I forget, like just like fidgeting, almost playing with coil wire between toes, and occasionally plowed across. Just kind of like I like the things that kind of point to the way of life around here, right? We see that later too, right? Like with the living out amongst the stars, away from everything and things like that. Some other things that come through. These are people that aren't getting a whole lot bills, so they're not doing electronic billing. Okay, so I think it's interesting. Time is interesting here. There's elements of the past, right, with like the coffee stains, the old table, the um the distance that they have from people. But then there's also like super minor things like the solar panels, but they're arcane solar panels, right? And even the things that are associated with technology are distanced, right? The nice man installed them when the government were offering a rebate. It sounds like that's in the past. Government's not doing that anymore. So I think time is there's a lot of distancing and things like that, which I think is interesting. Not our main focus for today, but I think that's interesting. Um, Everything is meant to kind of make time feel kind of dragged out. Um, what else do we know about the you? Sacrifice for the speaker. They just kind of like fidget around. They're in this location that's like really far away. Um, they source their own. So this is the moment where the identities merge. Right smack in the middle. Okay, and it's the characters are merging when we have revealed a bit about the you, but not a ton about the speaker. A lot of the speaker's identity gets kind of wrapped in the you, in their togetherness, right? Me sitting on the porch. To a degree, I mean, we're also kind of projecting because this is from the me's perspective. So all these things that the me is paying attention to is telling us about the me. But um, we source our own. So it's the moment when we also become when the characters merge that suddenly they also have agency a lot more. Okay, because before the you sacrificed, right? And they fidget and they wait for letters to arrive, but they don't control the letters that arrive. You know what I mean? But then as soon as we get the we, then suddenly we see a lot of elements of control. We source. What do we source? We source our own what? Water and electricity. So we're seeing literal power given to that unification when we join together. Um, what else do we do together? Do we leave coffee stains? Okay, so the it's interesting that with the you and the me, the um the actions seem a lot. There almost seems to be a lot less control. But then when we're together, suddenly we're able to kind of do more. Um, that's a nice man, and then we get the nice man from town. So what do we make of the individual identities disappearing? About halfway through. So halfway through, the individual disappears. And the individual, well, the only individual now is the nice man from town. We don't even know much about this nice man. We don't even know if he's government. He's just nice man from town. Also, again, creating some separation, right? Because he's not local. He's from town, which means they're probably not from town. When the government were offering a rebate, so suddenly, isn't this interesting? Who also drank copious amount? It's his fair tale. Day's work was done and dusted. So in some ways, this stranger that comes in is almost reinforcing there's almost like this reversal kind of with the you from earlier because the you's been merged with the speaker. So now we get the nice man who suddenly is also taking on this role of coffee drinker, um, and at the table, the very same table, and also comment on how nice it would be living out amongst the stars. It's like these are also things that also can be applied onto the speaker and the you if they're living in this place, maybe. Okay. Um, one thing I think is interesting, and I know I'm not really arriving at answers. These are just kind of dynamics I think are really interesting to kind of think about. Um, as we leave coffee stains on the table, mapping the courses of our lives, one faded. What an interesting enjambment. If there's any sort of tension about how things are, or how the speaker feels about how things are, I feel like it might be in this line here. Mapping the course of our lives. We leave coffee stains on the table. The coffee stains, what do? They map the course of our lives. What do we know about our lives? Our lives, one faded. Isn't that interesting enjambment? It keeps going, right? One fade, not complete, circle at a time. But especially with the seizure, especially with that comma, so you get this idea that our lives, line break, one faded. Which to me is adding quite a bit of attention here on behalf of the speaker. But is there enough to justify that the speaker might view one of their lives as faded? And if the speaker does view one of their lives as faded, which life? Is it the speaker's life or is it the use? I don't. Is there evidence to point to either? One faded, not complete, circle at a time. And obviously, these could just be metaphors for the coffee stains. But I think with the enjambment, it's really hinting at some sort of tension here. One faded. Faded is a really interesting choice too, because faded implies um, becoming invisible. If there's any character that's become invisible in the poem, it is the speaker in a lot of ways. But there's also that sense of the speaker and the you also becoming invisible too, because they merge into that we. Um, I would love to know your guys' thoughts. How's the speaker feeling here? Speaker happy? Is the speaker faded, jaded, losing energy? Also, that's an interesting way of putting it. There's a lot of energy kind of words here as well, right? Because I'm gonna erase all this. If we think energy, I mean, first of all, we're doing coffee, because we're tired, right? Coffee with that caffeine, electricity, getting into direct mention. The solar panels, but what about the solar panels? They're arcane. There's this constant, and then of course fade. So there's this watching the sun descend. All these images about energy, intentions with energy, and it's being lost. Even like the coil of wire, playing with a coil of wire. Well, if you're playing with it, it obviously doesn't have energy running through it. Um, yeah, the more I kind of look at this, the more this is a speaker who I don't know if I detect like kind of like a positive, vibrant reflection on how things are. I don't know. It seems like the energy's kind of going away. It seems like things are going empty. And in fact, the expectations are so low, right? It's going to be empty except for bills, more bills to pay. But nothing so boring. Hmm. And then the man comes in, and how does that man get this? The you's not nice. I mean, the you might be nice, but we don't get that description for you, and we don't get that for the speaker. Um, it's interesting with this obsession with nice as well. The nice man, and then we saw that how nice it would be. That's an interesting observation too, right? Comment how nice it would be living out amongst the stars. There's no so we're saying kind of objective language, like the guy comment how nice it would be, but we don't necessarily see the speaker agreeing or disagreeing. But I think it's almost kind of implied that maybe there's a disconnect. Drinking from well-worn mugs, watch the sun descend as we leave coffee stains on them, mapping out course of our lives, one faded, not complete, not quite complete. Circle. Faded. The course of our lives, one faded, not complete, not quite complete. Yeah, a lot of discontent. The more I read it, the more I get discontent. Okay. But it's interesting because the speaker can't go out and directly say that because they kind of erased themselves from the poem from very early on. And this is just all that I'm getting from the text. I could be completely off base. So I'd love to know your guys' thoughts. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Am I making things up? Am I just like wilding out here? That's just all these things are possible. Um, but let's kind of just wrap up things. So relationship dynamics. So in your own poem, what are you suggesting by your use of characters and where they appear and where they disappear and where they change? So one of the things that we looked at how identity gets lost to a degree, both for the you and for the me, because halfway through the poem they've become we, and they don't separate from that ever again, except for potentially at the end, where we get the course of our lives one faded, which is giving a hint of some kind of teasing a part of one, but not complete. Um, the use of characters to kind of change energy a little bit. Like for instance, we see the nice man coming in, even that word nice, in stark contrast to words like arcane and boring and built and empty. So we get this kind of energy shift when we introduce a new character. You introduce this whole new dynamic. We want to be thinking about when is that occurring? Can it occur too late? I always get a little bit suspicious when new characters come in, like the final third of a poem. It's like, where were you this whole time? Not say it can't be done, but kind of something to think about. What does it imply, when characters change? If my character disappears, I think sometimes you see it, like if you track characters, sometimes your mom's in your poem, but then at the end of your poem, your mom's gone. It's like, well, wait a minute, where'd the mom go? She was here for the first half, and then she's gone. Or vice versa. Or sometimes you'll see a character come out of nowhere. So kind of just always looking at these. Nona's with us. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks again for letting us look at your piece. We really appreciate it. Not sure if you'd like me to confirm anything you've been saying, but pretty spot on. Perhaps some context is missing where characters might live in their real world. You're welcome to share so people can see in the comments. The impression I get is they are located far from civilization. Okay, on the roof when the nice man from town installed. Even like nice man from town to me suggests that that town itself might not be big. Done and does, and there's lots of references to dust. I feel, and just distance. Kind of reminds me. My wife and I took a trip down to Big Bend, which is a national park in the U.S. Like right on the border between the U.S. and Mexico, and it's just, I mean, it's just desert and dust and hot and stars, at night. Um, Mapping the course of and not complete. That's in terms of context. You can let us know um, about their living in that real world. Um, I don't almost a sense of poverty, but that might be too much of a stretch, especially with all the attention. Um, so the rural order people, cattle farmer, sheep station, outback Australia. That's exactly, honestly, aside from like like a cattle farm or sheep farm. That's pretty much kind of the vibe I was getting. You know, cool. No. While I have you here, did you have any questions for me about the piece? I think all the things kind of happening with your character is very interesting to track. And again, these sessions aren't meant really as critique sessions. They're really just kind of trying to see what is literally happening in the poem. I wait, going to see if anything else comes to mind for the piece. Interesting on like the word mapping as well. Coffee stains map. Surrender, check the letter box. Relaxation characters, no questions. Got you. Okay. Coffee stains map. The table. Yeah. Well, that's kind of all I got. I just wanted to see what's going on with the characters and just all that dynamic and how it changes. And I hope that if you guys are watching this, thinking about your own pieces, what's happening with your characters, why is it happening, and then probably the next step is then asking yourself how can you amplify that. If you're interested in character dynamics, there's a book that actually we're gonna have on the channel soon because we just did a workshop on it. Called The Art of Subtext by Charles Baxter, which talks about lots of ways to explore character dynamics, to add to tension. Some of the things he mentions a lot is closing off proximity or closing off the distance between your character. Put them in a cramped space. Um, it's like putting them, like for instance, in a hallway or a closed room, in an elevator, and other things too. Paying attention to kind of physical descriptions of their body language and faces and things like that. Um, Question here. I wonder if you might see the inanimate objects, table, coffee as a character in itself. I don't know if I saw them necessarily as characters as much as kind of referring back to the situation itself. Like the coffee stains, which especially towards the end, one faded, not complete circle. That as a mirror for, I imagine, especially the speaker's life, I think comes through. But I don't know if that would necessarily that would make me see the coffee stains right now as I'm reading this in this moment at 9:51 p.m. on October 6th, New York time. I don't know if that would allow me to would get me thinking, oh, this is a character. But I could always be convinced. I'm looking at the table. So coffee stains. So coffee stains are on the table. Coffee stains table appear elsewhere. stars. No. Yeah, I really right now would kind of struggle to see them as characters, and I would see them more as symbols to represent what's happening in the characters' lives. Um, I think for me, if I were going to see them more as characters, I think having a moment where they have greater agency, because right now everything kind of just happens to them. Um, or maybe a greater significance. So coffee stains map the table. Like maybe, maybe even a few more references to them. I wonder if that is a goal to making them more into characters. Um, Having them take on a larger role, specifically in the middle of the poem, because right now they're kind of just bookending things. But I'm fine with them just kind of being metaphors that capture what's happening too. Like it doesn't bother me with how they are right now. Um, cool. All right, we've already been here a bit longer. Respect. There's so much like little stuff happening here. But yeah, think about your characters. If you guys have questions about characters, your own thoughts on characters and character development, be sure to let me know. Thanks again to Nona for allowing us to dive into their piece. Greatly, greatly appreciated. Um, Check out more of our work as well. And guys, just some updates. So we'll be back Tuesday. We have Diverses Live, typically around 9:45 p.m. on Tuesdays. We talk about either craft point, poetry business point, interviews, and things like that. And then we have a couple other things as well. Wednesday, we have Lo-Fi Poet, in case you want to write with us and listen to beats at the same time. We got Lo-Fi Poet on Wednesday. And then actually, right now, live on the channel, we have some actual poetry editing. So if you don't just want analysis, you want to actually see, practice editing poems. We can edit with us. Take a look at a poem that we edited 2 weeks ago. That is now live on the channel from the last 10, 20 minutes or so. Once more, my name is Jeff. Once more, thank you so much to Nona Rose for sharing their work. It can be a little scary and intimidating, but they did great. It's a really interesting piece to engage in. We will see you all later. Hope you guys have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon. Take care.